good morning. I'm not good at script writing. I get lost, I can't count words. So what I have done is put down a few bullet points to discuss with you today regarding our church and our stewardship drive. What I will talk about are things that I wish you take to heart and consider what you are able in your heart and by your means to contribute to the future of this church. I'll speak first of all on nuts and bolts types of things, and then some personal thoughts. I am a trustee of the church, along with many others, and the care of this church is one of the most important segments of our budget. And I'd like to start with an excerpt from an article that was written by a person named McGaughy in 2020. He started the article off by mentioning that USA Today in 1920 announced that this church, this Stowe Community Church, is one of the most photographed churches in the world. And he writes, like the Statue of Liberty welcomed immigrants to Ellis Island, the Stowe Community Church and its spire has welcomed travelers to this mountain valley for over a century. Inside the sanctuary, its magnificence isn't measured in statues or frescoes or elaborate religious icons. The beauty is in its spare New England simplicity, its purity, its welcoming hand. It has no denomination. People of all faiths feel welcome. It brings us together in celebration. It unites us when a cherished resident dies. The steeple, which rises over 170 feet into the air, never fails to beckon those of us who live there. We cannot stop ourselves from glancing up at one of the four clock faces while walking or driving by. The imposing white church tells visitors, "You're a Stowe." It tells the rest of us, we are home. So let's do the nuts and bolts first. Not only do we have our magnificent church built in 1863, but across the street is our parsonage. The parsonage is even older. It was built circa 1840. It's a beautiful, beautiful house, but we can't think of it as that. If you recall our interim pastor, Peter Hammond, he made it very clear to us to remind us that it is not a house, it is not an historic building, but it is a home. It's a home, a warm, welcoming home for our pastor, his lovely wife Loretta, and their twin sons, Jack and Blake, who are parents. We had them over for a movie dinner, and first of all, he made sure to compliment my wife that she made the best buttered noodles ever. And then when they watched Star Wars 9 in our theater, I had made enough popcorn for 6 people, but there was none left. I wish you could eat it better. But the pastor said, never think of it as a house, it's a home. It's a warm, comfortable home. And we have a responsibility to make sure that home is a home, that we take care of that as we would our own. And do whatever is necessary. Buildings that old are not easy to maintain. Our trustees are busy 24/7. We have 4 trustees in the board, but I like to think that we have a huge amount of adjunct trustees, people with special skills and talents that when called upon, step right up to the plate. We even have a handyman who loves the architecture, the history of this church, and has done wonderful work for us. Monitoring and taking and maintaining and assuring the integrity of the structure is not inexpensive. We have projects as small as a rip in the screen for a window, to a failing boiler in our church that has served us well for over 30 years. We are very thankful for everyone who has stepped up to the plate, and we implore that you think of the future of this church and its wonderful pastor and contribute accordingly. Now, on a personal note, when we finally moved to Stowe about 4.5 years ago, we got a home here 22 years. Our hope, my wife's hope and mine, that we would find a welcoming church and a meaningful Sunday experience. This certainly has been the case. When Pastor Will had accepted a call to Massachusetts, the questionnaire was sent to all the friends and members of our church, and their message was very clear. What this church needs is to expand our community outreach, maintain a strong music program, and draw new members. Youth, people of all ages, young families, young couples. Without that, a church cannot survive. Period. We know many churches have died. Unfortunately, our last church, at which I was baptized, confirmed, we were married there. When we went back, about 15 years ago, the church, which was a beautiful church, 250 years old, chartered by William Penn, the pastor had grown very tired. And the only strategy that the church had to draw people was to say, well, the doors are open, people will come. That doesn't happen. And over the next year, unfortunately, I was made president of the congregation. It's a suffering time. And we didn't close the church. Horrible. But now we have a new beginning. We have a new pastor. Under the leadership of Kathy Ryan Smith, who led our search committee, we took into account everything that was put in those questionnaires, and we prayed. We worked for 1 full year, sometimes two times a week. We interviewed many people. And when Pastor Dan's resume came across, well, he's a big church somewhere. So we're very worried. But we had to be. We didn't have to be. Not only has Dan been able to exceed what our hopes were, he has managed to make this a real, warm, meaningful church. And since beginning, this pastor here, he has not only met all expectations, but he has exceeded them multiple times. We are very fortunate. And over the weeks to come, months, Stan will be sharing the new beginnings, outreach, bringing new people, new programs, youth ministry. It's a lofty goal that we must support. Now, as a final comment, and I'm sure none of this applies to anything, it's just me, I'm sure, that when I go to church on Sunday, I want a sermon that will resonate with me and have applicability to my life and how I should live. Now, I'm sure I'm the only one, but when I hear a sermon that doesn't do that, my mind tends to wander. My eyes may close for a short bit. Doesn't happen to us in the male part of the choir at all. When we were upstairs. But I can honestly say I have experienced every one of Dan's sermons, and I have never experienced any of those reactions. I am truly blessed.